get by. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Weiss here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Today is no different. I have Paulo of King Ursa. You can check him out at KingUrsa.com. And Paulo, before I formally introduce you, I always like to point out other episodes of the podcast people should check out. Since this is part of the Top Agency series, some of the really cool agencies I've had on, I had Adee Clevitt. Paulo actually decided to specialize in done-for-you SOPs. So she works for the company. She comes in, their team will help document SOPs, whether it's client onboarding, staff onboarding. And so we geeked out on our favorite productivity tools, software, and everything like that. That was an interesting episode. Also had Andy Crestadina on. Andy Crestadina talked about his many years in the agency space. That was a good one. Jason Swank was also a great one where he talked about he built up his agency to 8 figures and sold it, and then had been buying up agencies and what he was looking at from a valuation perspective. So check those out and more on InspiredInsider.com. And this episode is brought to you by Rise25. At Rise25, we help businesses give to and connect to their dream relationships and partnerships. We do that by helping you run your podcast. We're an easy button for a company to launch and run a podcast. We do the accountability, the strategy, and the full execution. So, Paulo, we call ourselves the magic elves that run in the background to make it look easy for the host and the company so they can create amazing relationships, create amazing content, and run their business. You know, for me, the number one thing in my life is relationships. I'm always looking at ways to give to my best relationships, and I've found no better way over the past decade to profile the people and companies I most admire and share with the world what they're working on. So if you thought about podcasting, you should. If you have questions, go to rise25.com to learn more. I'm excited to introduce Paulo Salomao. He's the founder and CEO of King Ursa and their 30-plus person strong full-service advertising agency. They focus on end-to-end service, and King Ursa brings research and analysis, and they also bring the strategy, the creative, the production, and the media all under one roof. They were ranked in the ad industry was under number 42 of the top creative agencies in Canada. He also does a lot of speaking. He speaks on the growing need for balancing artificial versus emotional intelligence in communication. So, Paulo, thanks for joining me.
It's my pleasure to be here.
I'm going to share the King Ursa website as we're talking, but just start us off with King Ursa and what you do.
I think you covered everything quite well, Jeremy. All the facets of our business there. Being a full service agency, but first and foremost, we are a creative first agency. And our unique, as you see on the website, our unique selling proposition is the evolution agency. We believe that everything that we do in a day of today, where you can measure, whether if you're quantifying, qualifying what the work that we are doing in communications, if you can measure, you should be evolving it, right? So learning from the past and optimizing for the future. So that's our promise. That's what I would like you to remember of what it is that our purpose is today.
Talk about the bear.
The bear came. So the name King Ursa, it is. We like to keep it, as you see on the website. We don't talk about it. Like it's you got to be in the in to know. But the bear came from back in the day. We were 10 years old now, right? So the first couple of years, we were the first agency to be very, very in the east end of Toronto, and while all the other agencies were going to the west and being on the west side of Toronto all together there, and we felt, every time we talked about people coming to visit us, we're like, hey, come to this neck of the woods. Come see us here, like come and visit us and so on. And this neck of the woods picked up. And then at some point, one of the designers used a bear, woods and bear. And, Canada is, it's one of our animals here. So it just stick, and then people start buying bears for like buying little bear gifts and
It caught
put
on.
little bears on it, and all of a sudden we had a bear as a mascot. And then when it was time to actually put a name forward, we use Ursa. Is actually I'll give you that hint of the name, because Ursa is a female bear in Latin or Brazilian Portuguese, where where I'm from and the language they speak. So it's so that's where the bear came from. Yeah, and now it's our mascots there, and it's such a powerful figure. The mother bear is definitely the apex of the forest, right? Like, you don't mess with the mother bear.
Totally. I was thinking you were going to say you killed a bear with your bare hands, so the bear is your mascot now.
No, no, it did. Oh man, no, I don't think I could, but it's fierce. It's fierce for sure, and that's the way we're small and mighty. So that's how we like to the bear, what the bear represents for us too.
Now, you're from Brazil originally. What brought you to Toronto?
I came at the age 21, and that was 25 years ago, and came to learn English, Jeremy. And I ended up not learning much in the first year, and had to stay a little longer. And after insisting and learning proper English, I decided to take some courses before I went back to Brazil, and start studying and design. Art direction and film. And I ended up going to three different colleges in Canada, and that led to a career, and that led me to build my life here. And now, 10 years later, married with two kids, married to a Canadian, and two kids. And yeah, so I just fell in love, of course, with the country. It's my country now, and I absolutely love Toronto. Always in Toronto. So yeah, it's a long story. I'll leave it for another time.
How did you get into starting your own agency?
So the intention was never to start an agency. I was working as a art director for quite a long time, and I expanded to film. So I went to Toronto Film School. I've learned. I can actually. I'm very curious about everything when it comes to design and everything around it. I'm a big tech guy too. I can front end code. I play at home with my Raspberry Pis and new tech. I absolutely love to be, I'm an early adopter for sure of tech. And but that all those being so in so many different facets of the business, I even ended up studying copywriting for advertising at Humber College here, and agencies would look at me and really saw in the age of social and videos, online videos were booming, saw me as someone who could actually bridge all the disciplines together. But being at large agencies, I felt I wanted to move faster than the way the industry here was moving. So I ended up frustrated with my own position in the way things were moving, and decided to leave and start freelancing on my own. Actually, at the time, this is about 10 years ago, and I went back to Brazil, spent a year in Brazil, rejuvenating and learning a lot more about the revolution of ad agencies, what was happening there. They were ahead of Canada quite a bit. Of course, not because of the volume and because of the aggressiveness of the size of the country and economy and all that. So after a year, I came back and knew better what my position was and what I wanted to do, and the value that I could bring to the industry. And I started freelancing. And that freelancing turned into, from my garage, at some point, I had 3-4 people working for me. At the time, I actually 2 years later, I invited a friend to say, "Hey, come and help me do the same thing, is turning into something, or whether it's an agency or whatnot." And then he came and helped me for a few years, and he was my business partner for a while. And then as COVID hit, then he decided we open up another business, and we both decided it was time for us to part amicably. But yeah, so the agency was really I've always believed in this organic way of growth, and when I'm a very competitive too, so when I do something, I want to do the absolute best. So that led into the agency that it is today.
I love to hear a little bit more of the evolution of the agency, right? So you start, you're working for other agencies, you start freelancing, then you have people working out of your garage with you. And then at what point do you like, okay, because you have a beautiful office, obviously you walked me through it before we hit record. At what point you're like, okay, I need to get out of my garage and we need to move into an office?
That was the point where you, I remember being, it becomes too small. Like you're in your garage, and now you need to be more you need to have face to face with people more, with people that you work with first. And the garage was not. It started to get too small. So at first, I got a place that was probably twice the size of my garage, so it wasn't that big, but it was at least was a place, and it felt like an office now. It felt like and I hate the word office, but I say it because I always say lawyers have offices. We work in studios, advertising. We have a studio, so so I needed that space to feel like a studio, to feel like a place. I've always been an environment aesthetics, and I love that so much. I think it has a huge influence on what we do. So that the need came, both from face to face, even start to seeing a few clients, small clients, but start having a place to have them, brainstorming and so on.
I didn't know if they were at a certain point of like a staff growth. You're like, okay, we need to move out of here. We can't fit everyone in here.
Yes.
Also, that comes with overhead too. Obviously, your garage, you're not, there's no overhead involved with that besides your house. But now you have expenses. So you started with maybe a office that was a little bit double, and then what point you moved into what was the next move?
It was very gradual from that space, from the small, how can I say it, 40 by 40 square feet. We moved to a place that was twice the size of that. And at that time, we had 6, 7 employees. And actually, the space that we found was within an industrial building that we could actually. It was somewhat empty, half empty, I should say, but like we could actually break some walls and actually expand if we wanted to. So strategically, I chose that space because of that. And so 3 years later into that place, 2 years later in that place, I think we expanded to the side. And then from there, we had now 20 people. And then 3 years later, we decided, okay, now we're growing to 30 and we needed a bigger studio. Full size student. So we moved to even like an 8,500 square foot facility with a full studio, editing room. And this is all before the pandemic, of course. So it was very gradual. The ambitions were there. Like I've always looked into, growth as a result of great work that we were doing. So very gradually, but but within time, we were in a big space, which was not the best idea when COVID hit. I'll tell you.
Did you keep that space after COVID, or did you downsize?
So I had to. I had to keep a space, 2 offices at the point that COVID hit. We were approximately 50 plus employees and 2 offices inside a building. And we had signed a 3-year lease, and I had to stick with 3 years paying an extremely high rent with no one inside. And of course, we took some hit as well, like from clients. Certain clients, we just couldn't make it. So we cut relationships and decreased size. And it was tough times, definitely tough times to pay a giant rent when you're not, utilizing the space. It was a big toll on our bottom line.
Yeah, it was tough for everyone for many reasons. And since you are the evolution agency, I'm going to keep with the theme. So I could see the evolution of the space. Let's talk about the evolution of hires. What were some of the key hires along the way for you?
As we grew, one of the performance has always been a huge part of who we are and why we do what we do. I do come from a digital advertising, but learned a lot and worked at traditional agencies. And I've always believed performance has, if the work that we do, communications work that we're doing, putting out there, if it's not moving the needle for our clients, and this is not cliche talking, I truly have always been curious about how well did a piece of creative? How well did a piece of anything that we're putting out there? Like if we're not able to, even for curiosity, like was it good? Did it actually sold more products, or did it sell more products? Did it get people talking about it? Did it change? Was it part of the trends that, was it? I've always been very curious about all of that, and I believe that curiosity led us at some point inside King Ursa to build upon a service that could validate all of this. And the biggest change for us was to hire data scientists. So with two internal full-time data scientists and one VP of analytics, we were truly able to maximize the performance of everything that we do out there. So there's a lot of assessment of where we should go, tactically and strategically and everything. And there's a very, just as important, the post analysis of what we do. So we ended up developing our own dashboards and so on. So they lead a lot of that, all that, structure and evolution of the work that we do.
That's really interesting. The last thing I would think of, creative agency is hiring data scientists, right? So what made you decide to go that route?
It is because of the responsibility I believe we have as advertisers and the promise that we make to our clients. There's an immense amount of trust and responsibility, I believe, that we have with the budgets that we get. And I take, as an entrepreneur, I've always looked with an entrepreneur lens of how important those dollars are and how important making them work hard it is for our clients. And without knowing, it's just trying to minimize the guesswork, right? Not to say that everything, there's part of advertising and communications that you can, it's more quantifiable than qualifiable. Sorry, qualifiable than more than the quantifiable. So you can't, not everything is predictable. There's sentiments and there's especially when it comes to awareness, like if you're talking about tactics from top to bottom, there's a lot of intuition that goes into it. There's a lot of experience that goes into that type of work and communications. But when you talk about mid funnel and lower funnel, no matter what, we should be assessing this. We should be looking at, and especially how things change so fast nowadays, how platforms and algorithms are changing constantly, how trends and how people are actually spending their time, where they're spending time changes constantly. I've always believed is the part of the work is the least we could do nowadays is to assess and be able to measure what we're doing so we can stop and continue what is right, what is wrong, and so on. And so I believe that is a crucial part of our work.
Yeah, so a key part of the kind of the evolution of the hires, one was really the realization of bringing on data scientists to do some deep analysis of the numbers. What was another kind of key role or hire that was part of the journey for you?
Part of the journey of, in that sense, to me, was more than a hire. Now, at this point, is to maintain the culture of being performance driven. So creative advertising is, I believe, carries a very long, at least in Canada, a very, it's coming straight from schools and how they're prepared for the workforce and how the system itself in the industry segregates creative or puts creative in a pedestal, and how you actually even perform through a career. What is success in the creative in a department or a career? I think I believe it's not set for success and how the world and communications is moving forward. So I do, for that reason, I have been even running a workshop with one of the most reputable colleges in Canada for advertising, in my opinion, which is Humber College. And I'm a huge fan of them. And I've been working in running workshops with Humber College for the past 6 years, for the fourth year advertising program, and helping bringing and influencing the new generation of how how to create content for platforms, and how to look at social platforms, and how things are moving. Every year we're changing the workshop content because things are changing all the time. So here, maintaining the creative element and the intuition element, while also reinforcing how important it is for everyone, no matter what role you're in, that the performance of the work that we do is extremely important. Is the second I think most important thing that we're able to accomplish, and I keep my focus on.
Talk about that for a second, and maintaining culture. What are some of the things that you have implemented throughout the years that have helped?
Jeremy, I'll tell you one thing as an entrepreneur. And it's been since COVID, I dove my head into operations, and I wish I had 10 years ago somebody had told me a lot more about it, and I had learned a lot more, because God bless the people in this world that does operations and understands corporate operations. I find it fascinating. So the things that I have implemented come from professionals that I have hired to support the operations work in the past, the operations of the agency, as well as my own studies through books and mentorship, as well as coaching. So I have invested a lot into bringing that expertise in-house in order to support those theories and culture and building culture. So it definitely starts with the vision, and the vision of a company needs to be clear and concise. And so you can internalize and you can externalize, so everybody understands what we are here for and why we exist. And second most important is what role each one here plays in that in achieving that mission. So I speak, and I think repetition is very important. So I constantly, and I add in every single deck that we have, our USP and our mission. So it is, I'm here to, with the flag, I'm the flag bearer to remind everyone and making sure that we're staying within our mission, and and accomplishing it, and measuring as well how well and how close we're getting to it, our goals and so on. So I think all of that structure, it is what keeps our culture together, and making sure we all understand what in the values, what's important, and so on. So again, performance being one of them, right?
It's funny, you're talking about, when we talk about culture and then kind of going to vision, and that also relates to kind of operations and culture. So it kind of goes back to vision. I'm listening to this kind of series of, I don't know, we call them lectures, from Jim Camp, who wrote the book Start With No, the negotiating tools that pros don't want you to know. But really the overall, if I were to sum up like all of these lectures he talks about, is vision. He's, people are like, oh, we want win-win or whatever. He's like, no. He's like, I don't believe in any of that stuff. I believe in vision. And if you have a clear vision and you accomplish that vision, it's not about getting it for more or less. Mm-hmm. In the negotiations, it's like, if you accomplish your vision, then that's what you set out to do. So it's very interesting. You talk about that. What are some of the resources? You mentioned books, possibly people. What are some of the resources that you've used to kind of go deeper in the world of operations?
I do a lot. I think first, mentorship. I learned that I've learned to ask, and how important it is. I'm very fortunate to be surrounded by incredible, accomplished professionals, CEOs, CMOs, like people that have have accomplished marvelous things in the industry. So I reach out to them and I ask for their time. I ask for recommendations. I ask for support, like in knowledge. That's definitely one of them. Second, I do value professions, and I more than I value money and making money. So to me, the more I can bring and I can pay for the service of people that are professionals at that certain areas that we need growth and we need help. I've always invested on it, and I believe not having venture capital, not having tied to anyone, being bootstrapped and being set up the way we are, I can make those calls and very fast and invest in a company and invest in our support and our knowledge and total knowledge. I believe in my own knowledge as well. Books, 100%. I read a lot, and I have a lot of books on the go. In fact, I have a Kindle account where I have books here, Kindles that people can, our team, they can take home and read it and bring it back. And so I truly believe in reading a lot, and there's a lot of great books out there, and love to recommend at the end too. If you
go ahead. What are some of your favorites?
My favorite is right now. It's always about timing. So right now, so when it comes to operations, definitely what the heck is EOS is one of the ones that I apply a lot.
Traction, Gino Wickman.
Traction as well, yes.
Yeah.
Both of them.
Gino was a guest, so people could check out that episode with Gino. Traction, great book.
Another one, both of them are amazing books. Another one that I've been reading a lot and have a lot of notes is The Coaching Habit. So my coach actually was the one that recommended and absolutely loved both of the books, The Advice Trap and The Coaching Habit. And the last one that I'll put there's a bunch of others, but the other one that I've been reading a lot and recommend a lot is Smart Brevity, which is a fantastic book on how to write with confidence and short. And I've always believed that communication, I think it's so important. And I recommend everyone, when I meet them, I say, you have to read this book. It's small, it's very technical, it helps you, it gives you guidance. Like, it's an absolute book I say everyone should be reading.
I'm looking at it now. It looks like Jim Van de Hey and Mike Allen. Is that the one?
Right. Yes.
Yeah. So it's Smart Brevity, The Power of Saying More with Less. Love it. I'll have to check that one out. I have some credits on my Audible. And the other one's The Coaching Habit. Looks like Michael Bungay Stanier and Daniel Mate. Is that the right one? Okay.
Correct.
Say Less, Ask More, and Change the Way You Lead Forever.
Yes. Amazing books.
Awesome. Thank you. That's fantastic. I'll check those out. I'm curious how your role has changed and evolved, right? You started off freelancer, then you were still doing the work, and then you had staff. And that will kind of take us up to, I know you're tackling certain problems right now as a founder, but what were some of the roles and how they changed throughout your King Ursa journey?
Initially, of course, started as a consultant creative director, art director, if you will. And then from there, as we start evolving, I went back to be a full-time creative director, which was my last role at agencies. And from there, I think I follow the natural progress of our industry. And from creative director, we were able to hire creative directors that did a much better job than I did. So I kept replacing myself with better people. Every time we could, it was like, I knew with better and more qualified professionals to do what I was doing. So that's led me to be an executive creative director. And from there, once we hired an executive creative director who's still with us today, Grant Cleland. And I have huge respect for him. I became CCO, Chief Creative Officer, and as we were big enough, and all the COVID changes that happened, then I assumed the CEO leadership position, which was to me the biggest transition, I believed, and the most the most change that I believe that happened in my career was the moment 2022, beginning of 2022, when I took over as a CEO and founder CEO of the company.
So you're tackling certain problems now. Let's talk about trust and what you're speaking about on trust.
So trust has been, to give you a bit of context, I talk last year I had my talk, and I released information about my past and how I got to I believe in where we come from, do help shape us, how we're face the world in the future, and how we're brought up. I think has a huge influence in who we are. And I was brought up by a very strong mother, who was she has always been the symbol of accomplishment and of everything in my life. And I was actually also brought up by two older sisters. So I usually joke that I was brought up by three mothers. So to this day, they still treat me like I'm 16 and I don't know what I'm talking about, which is fine. I love them to death. So I played that role quite well. My mother was a criminal lawyer in Brazil. She worked as a detective, as an investigator in narcotics. Like she's a very strong woman with strong principles and strong values. And I've always believed that intensely. I remember, I couldn't bring 2 cents back home from buying bread at the corner, because she would tell us, she would teach us, the importance of trust and importance, in a very kind way, like, and how important that was for us to go back and actually say the mistake was made, and with integrity and with humanity. And I believe I've always carried that with me, and I believe that trust and loyalty is everything. Like, you lose trust, or I think it's a hard thing to get back. I believe trust you gain by being your full self, accepting who you are as a human being, as a professional, and accept that mistakes will be made, accept that expectations can only set you for failure. I think we need to be clear about what, right expectations of what is expected, so that transparency goes hand in hand. And for me, the one thing that I promised myself when I left the ad agencies, the large ad agencies, was I want to work with clients, not for clients, with clients that I can trust, that they can trust me, that we can build a relationship without formality, that we're able to tell each other what is how, because I believe formality gets on the way of innovation, of accomplish things faster in the way. I think it can get, process, too much process and too much formality gets in the way. And I think having losing the inhibition to be able to say as it is and get to the bottom of the problem, removing oneself, it's the most effective things and efficient thing that we can do professionally and psychologically. So you create, I believe in psychological safety. So when you create the psychological safety that allows people to fail, because you can't, like, one of my biggest sentences, quotes that I love and I repeat constantly, Sir Ken Robinson's quote, which is, you cannot accomplish anything new if you're not prepared to be wrong. Like, don't quote me on the exact words, but that's the idea of it. So. And you have to trust in order to create the new, because the new and the innovation in how you work and what the output is and whatever that is comes out of the people and how you're working together, how you trust each other together. And just to end that part, the one thing I spoke last year about trust was the 3 things that I saw, and the most successful client relationships that I've ever had, and that we have to this day, are when we encounter humble leaders, true humble leaders without ego on the table, that are sitting down and saying, let's solve a problem, let's work together on this. Leaders that empower their teams, So they trust their teams to fail as well, and trust their teams to learn from failure and move forward. And so an environment that empowers people to grow through failure as well. And clients that value their partners. So truly valuing your partnerships, like from not just us, but as us as well, valuing our partners, or if we're working with another media company, although we sell media, we value their participation in the work. We value our PR partners that come and work with us. We value our clients that are working with us. Like, so it's mutual, and it's extremely important.
No, thanks for sharing that. That's really valuable to hear. And I'd love to go from trust. I know you talk about the value of emotion. I did quickly look up that quote by Sir Ken Robinson. It looks like he also has a TED Talk in 2006, and it's called "Do Schools Kill Creativity?"
Number one TED Talk at TED.
I have to check that out. And he said, if you're not prepared to be wrong, you'll never come up with anything original. So I love that. Thanks for sharing that.
If you're a parent, you have to watch that. You have to watch that TED Talk. Number one TED Talk at TED.com. 100%.
Love it. I'm going to watch it today. The value of emotion.
Yes, and this is the topic that I'm speaking this year, and I have a few speaking engagements that that I'm working on. So this is a thesis that I'm just working on right now, but it is imperative that as we enter this economy of skill, and now on top of it, with AI, automating a lot of the skill that we are already part of, automation can lead to I don't want to call it cold, but less humane approaches when it comes to communication, which is the last thing. It's so counterintuitive to what is needed nowadays. We can't forget that consumers are not consumers anymore. They continue to be and have always been people, and we need to look at them as people, at us as people. And if we cannot get into the trap of that short-term sale gain versus the long-term brand building and relationship building with consumers, and I believe that it is imperative that we continue to exercise creativity, and which leads to emotional connections with consumers, to try to continue to build emotional connection with consumers, and fight that with with the craziness that is happening out there, with the whole how convoluted the world is today with the information, and like to break through it. Emotion is extremely important to having a process of communications. One, like, to me, is like it's the one thing we focus a lot here, not to lose that, and it has proven to us in results that it's incredible how you see how much difference that makes in performance. So yeah, it's definitely something that we're focusing a lot on.
Paulo, I just want to be the first one to thank you. Thanks for sharing your journey, your lessons, and some of these amazing resources as well. I want to encourage people to check out kingursa.com. Maybe like just subconsciously, that's like your mom and sisters all packed into one, that mother bear. So really appreciate you. Check out kingursa.com, where episodes of the podcast, and we'll see everyone next time. Paulo, thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sailing right now. I'm feeling like $100 grand.